Hey, welcome to Taylor's Trick Taking Table. I'm Taylor, and I have way too much hair. I need it gone. So, it brings me to my first point before we cover the games we're covering today, which is Designer Spotlight, by the way, of 10 Tricks Later and Livemix by Yusuke Sawaguchi. But before we get into that, I'm going to Gen Con to get rid of this hair. If you can beat me at Sears Catalog, that's right. So Sears Catalog is coming up at Gen Con. It's a re-implementation of what's left. And I cannot wait. I am so excited. I'll be at the Bezier booth, be saying hi, playing games. And I would love to play Hands of Sears Catalog. And the winner, or winners, if anyone beats me at Sears Catalog, in just a hand, just a single hand, you only get a hand, you get one free line of buzz on my head. It's going to be called Shears Catalog. It's a wild idea. So I'm going to bring a buzzer. I'm going to bring a copy of Sears Catalog. Come on down. It's going to be Friday of Gen Con. I think later in the day. I'm not 100% sure on time. I'll update on Twitter, which I'll have in a link in the description to know exactly the time, or probably next week I'll probably firm up the time. But yes, come down, play Sears Catalog. If you beat me, you get one free line of this hair, and it'll be great. I think the plan is not to lose, but also maybe to lose, because this hair's got to go. So yes, come on down. Beat me. Get a line. Do a line anywhere you want. Eyebrows off limits. Beard. You can talk me into the beard. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah. Beard as well. Beard as well. Why not? It's all must go. All hair must go, except for eyebrows. I was told by people in my life that I cannot do the eyebrows. So anyway, come on down. Friday, Gen Con. We will be playing Sears Catalog for bragging rights and for shaving rights. With all that out of the way, that's right, we're doing a designer spotlight. 10 Tricks Later and Livemix. These are very interesting games. I love designer spotlights. See what is like a through line for the designer, see when they change up, see if they have, commonalities between the games, and if their different design styles come through. The themes on both of these are fascinating. This one is zombies, and this one is idols. Like having, I think, singing idols. There's like a little bit of a festival, I think the theme is, where you're attracting different idols. I don't really have anyone I idolize. And so this one feels very theme-based designed, and this one feels very concept-based design, which is cool. And this one, definitely could have been theme-based design, but it's interesting how you'll see certain rules in this one that are like, oh, because the theme. Whereas this one is like, seems like a good game, and then there's maybe the theme based around it. But again, don't know, but it's really interesting to compare and contrast. The hook for 10 Tricks Later is it's zombie-themed, and you are trying to save survivors and bring them into your safe zone, your shelter. And it's going to be a mix of winning tricks and losing tricks at the right time. You're going to try to get survivals in front of you, and then you're going to try to win tricks to bring them in. It's kind of like a push and pull, interesting stuff. And then Livemix, the premise is, again, you're going to like this idol festival. I don't really get what that means, but you're trying to attract scoring cards. They're idols, where if you win, you're going to get a scoring card for you, and it's going to score the cards that you capture. But you only can win 2, maybe 3 cards, depending on the player count, and then you're out of the round. And so it's a little bit interesting because you want to win the right ones. And the last thing is, the person who's the last one in gets all the rest of the idols, and they score their whole hand. Because the other twist is, even though you score what you capture, if you go out early, you're going to have a hand of cards still, because you didn't play every trick. And those, if they match any of your scoring things that give you positive points for capture cards, they're going to give you minus points for cards in hand. So for example, if you get a scoring card that says all 5 score, and you capture a 5, that's great. But if you have a 5 in your hand, or 2 5s in your hand, you're losing points. Fascinating stuff. Going to the table, and I'm going to teach you how to play Livemix and 10 tricks later. The deck in Livemix is 4 suits numbered 1 through 12. The 1 is special in that it can become a 13 if it's played in the same trick, lead suit, with the 12. Also, the 9 is special because it moves the star, which I'll explain in a little bit. At 3 players, you're just going to remove one of the suits. Here we have a game set up for 4 players, so you're going to shuffle and deal the cards equally to each player. That means 12 cards each, and then you're also going to shuffle the 12 idols and put them in a circle here, and then put the star in front of one of them. In the first round, the first leader is just chosen randomly. Let's say it's the Mind. They're going to play any card they want. Let's say they played this 8 in purple. It is a must-follow game, so the pairs, the shut-up, sit-down pairs are going to play purple. The interesting thing is if the 12 and the 1 in the same suit are in a trick, the 1 actually beats the 12. They both have to be on suit because must follow a game, it's highest of the lead suit that wins, but the 1 actually becomes a 13 if they're both in there. As you can see, it even has like a 13 on the card. So let's say Tom played the 13, and finally, coming down here, they play the 5. So highest of the lead suit would win. It usually would be the 12, but since the 1 was in it, the 1 wins. Tom is going to win not only all of these cards, but also they're going to win the idol where the star is at. So they're going to put that in their trick pile, and they're going to take this idol, they're going to put it in front of themselves. Now they are going to get a positive point for every flower symbol that they capture. Then they're going to lead to the next trick. Let's say Tom led with the 8 of hearts, so it's a must follow coming to the Mind here. They could play the 1 or the 7, but also they could play this 9, and the 9 is the other special card in the game, just like the 1. As you can see here, it moves the star once. So when it's played, right away, the card that everyone's fighting over for the winner is actually going to shift one to the next card clockwise. That happens mid-trick. So then the trick just keeps going. So if another 9 was played, like if this player was short-suited, oh, they are, this might be perfect. They could play another 9 and shift it again. So then, same thing happens, the winner of the trick, it was this player, the Mind down here, is going to win the idol where the star's at, and then they're going to collect the trick and then lead to the next trick. This keeps going until a player either captures their 3rd idol. So let's say this happened, and then later on, the Mind won this one. The second they capture the 3rd idol, they are now out of the round. They want to make sure to keep the cards that they captured separate from their hand cards, because that's important for scoring, but they are now out, and the lead passes to the next player clockwise. Jumping ahead, the other special thing is, let's say the trick looked like this, where it was lead moons, and Tom is up here winning it with the 10 of moons. If you ever win 2 of the same type of idol, and that's at 4 players, you are immediately kicked out. You don't get a 3rd idol. So then this, Tom would capture, but then they would be out of the round. Again, making sure to keep their score pile separate from their hand. And then the game would continue with now 1 fewer player. So now it's just between these 2 players. Jumping ahead, let's say the pair took the next 3 tricks and they got knocked out. So when there's 1 player left, the round ends immediately, and the player that's left is going to take all of the remaining idols in front of them. They're also going to take their hand and put it into their score pile. So they score everything in their hand and they have nothing in their hand. Jumping ahead to the end of the round, it's really important for scoring to make sure that players keep their hand that they had when they went out separate from their score pile. And again, the person who was last won't have a hand, they'll just have a score pile. How the scoring works is you're going to look through all your cards and see which ones satisfy your conditions. So in your score pile, you're going to look through, and so like if we're scoring the fugitive here, they have this 11. Notice they're going to score for 1 through 4, 4 through 7, 8 through 10, and then 6 through 9. So this 11 actually does nothing for them. So you can go through and notice, anything higher than a 10 doesn't even score, so they can actually just, take that out. But now they're going to start scoring. So this 10 here, it's going to score 1 point. So that's 1 point. But notice how sometimes they have overlapping things. So like in example here, this 8, that has an 8 here, so it's going to score a point for that, but also an 8 down here. So this is actually worth 2 points. So notice 8s are really good for them, 7s are good, 4s are good, and they could possibly get multiple points from multiple cards. So they're going to score that up, and they're going to get definitely positive points. However, looking over here, this player went out first, remember? So they're going to look at their captured pile here, and they're going to get a point for every heart card. So that's 1 point here. Then they're going to get a point for every 3, 4, over here, so they got this one. Then they're going to get 2 points for every 5 and 6. So that's 2 more points for this. And then a point for every 7 and 8. So they don't have that. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they got 5 points for their score. But remember, they had cards in hand. They're going to lose a point for all the things that count in there. So that's -1, -2, -3, -4. So they're -4, and then they also got a 3, so -5. They got a 7, so -6. Oof. So they actually are at -6 plus 5, so they're at -1 points. You can go negative in this game. So all the players are going to score like that, and then you're going to play a total of 3 rounds. In a subsequent round, so the person with the lowest score is going to lead, lowest score from the previous round, and then whoever has the most points at the end win. If it's tied, you share the tie, and that's how to play Livemix. The deck for 10 Tricks Later is made up of 5 suits numbered 1 through 8, except for the zombie suit, which is special in that it's actually numbered 0 through 8. And at 3 players, you will actually remove a suit, but at 4 players, you'll use all the cards. Here we have a game of 10 Tricks Later set up, so no matter the player count, players are going to get dealt 10 cards. Also, they're going to have a fence in front of them that goes from 0 to 8, and they're going to have a little bead, and it's going to start on 0. This is going to keep track of the number of survivors they can let in. The lead player for the first round is the last player to watch a horror movie. So let's say it's the Necromancer over here. So they are going to play into the trick a card. Maybe they lead with this yellow 2. And it is a must-follow game-ish. So players, if they have the lead suit in their hand, as you can see here, if they have more than one, they must follow. So in this case, maybe they play the 8 because they had to have played the 1 or the 8, and then coming down here, this player, since they had more than 1 yellow, they do also have to play a yellow, so maybe they play the 6. When it's all just the normal color cards, like there's no zombies in the trick, then it is the highest of the lead suit that wins. So the 8, because yellow was lead, will win this trick. They are going to collect these cards in front of them as survivors, in front of their fence. So that's going to go up there in front of them. And then the players who lose the trick are going to be increasing their track here by the number they played. So the Necromancer played 2, so they're going to go up 2, whereas the Ace over here, of the skeleton hand, they played a 6, so it's actually going to go all the way up to 6. And you want that higher for reasons I'll explain in a little bit. But for now, we're going to go into the next trick. So the winner of the trick is going to lead. Maybe they play a red. So they're going to play a red 1. And so now this gets to part of the maybe must follow in the game, is as you can see here, this player only has 1 red. When you have only 1 of this lead suit, you can, instead of playing that lead suit, you could still play the lead suit, you could play an infected or a zombie. So if they wanted to, they could play a zombie, but in this case, they're just going to keep it normal, just for now, just to show the game, and they're going to play that 5. So then coming to the Necromancer, they, again, since they have a lot of this color, they're going to play this 7. So again, highest lead suit would win, and the lowest would move up their track. So this goes up 1, this would go up 5. If you ever do more than the amount, you just go up as many as you can. So even though they're at 6 and played 5, to get 5, they only moved up 2, and then the winner would take the trick. Now after the players have finished the trick, you're going to see if you're letting anyone into your kind of shelter. And how that works is you're going to look at the number, and if it's higher than or at the lowest rank, you're going to pull that person in, save them, and then lower it by that amount. So, for example, over here, notice that they have 2, and they have a 1 over here. So they're going to save this little kid, they're going to flip it, that's going to be a positive point for them, and they're going to lower it by 1. Then they check, they have 1, but the next lowest is 5, so it doesn't work. Similarly, up here, this player has 1, because they played the 1 to get, more points, or the shelter amount, I don't know what it's called on the shelter track, and then so now they have a 1 here, but sadly 2 is their highest. If this was 2, they could pull in this player, or this survivor, and then go down to 2. But sadly it was at 1. And likewise, if they had a bunch, so let's say they were actually at 8 at the end of the trick, they would pull in the 2, you always pull in the lowest, move it by the lowest, so go down to 6, and then they could pull in the 6, which is great, but then they would go down to 0. And again, you have to go lowest first. So like let's say you're at 7, you can't pull in the 6 and then go to 1. You'd have to pull in the 2 and then go to 5 and then not be able to pull in the 6. So hopefully that all makes sense. Let's rewind here to what it was. It says a 1. And now that this player over here, they won the trick, they brought in somebody, they're going to lead to the next trick. And just to be clear on the flow, you are going to pull in a survivor, lower the track, and keep doing that until either you can't pull in a survivor or you have no more currency of this survivor track to pull someone in. So now maybe the necromancer leads with the 3. Again, coming up here, they have to play one of the reds because it is must follow. But coming down to this player, they can play whatever they want because they don't have the card. Maybe they want to make it an infected trick, and we can get into that. But again, if they just play that, highest of the lead suit would win. But let's say they didn't do that, and they did actually play an infected. So when an infected is played, now it doesn't matter about lead suit. It's just the highest color card, so non-zombie, is going to win the trick. And if it's tied, so let's say, for example, it looked like this. If it's tied, it's later played. So if it was lead, this red, this person offsuited with a 3, and then the zombie came in, this would win it because it is the highest and later on ties color card in the zombie trick. So this player won the trick, and let's show how a zombie gets resolved. So players are going to first resolve the zombie before they take survivors. So how it works is you're going to add up the total number on the zombie value. So if in this really brutal situation there were actually 2 zombies in the trick and this person won, that would be 9, and they would use 9 as the number, but thankfully that did not happen in this made up trick. It's just 3. So then they would look at that value and they see anything over here in front of their wall that isn't in their saved section is susceptible to the zombie. So they look at the 3 here, and they sadly have a 2 survivor, a weaker survivor over here. They just got eaten by the zombie, and so this is actually now a minus point. It'll go off to the side. I think they say face down, and I think actually they say maybe you keep face up underneath your fence as a positive point. But so again, that was a value 3, this one's 2, so they got eaten, but those 2 don't because that's a 6 and an 8. So that's how you resolve the zombies, and then they would just go off, to the discard. And then they would take their survivors back in, and then people do the same reevaluation. So this player over here got 3, and this person would get 3, but they're at 8. One thing to note is actually the 1s do beat the 8s. They turn into 9s if they're in the same trick, so that's a small thing about the trick taking. But now the winner of the trick is going to lead into the trick, and I should say you actually at the start can't lead a zombie until they're broken. So like in this case, they can lead it now because a zombie was played into a previous trick. But if this was the start of the game, the player could not, who was leading, play this card. Also, the other rule is if they only have zombies, they can lead, so it doesn't have to be broken. So very similar to Hearts if you played Hearts. So now you'll just keep playing. You're going to play all the tricks. If a zombie is led, that changes the must follow and kind of flow of the game. It's not must follow on zombies anymore. You can now play whatever card you want. So in this case, if the top smelty smiley face character played and led a zombie because it was now able to, this player over here doesn't have to play that 6 zombie. They could just play the 2. So finishing out the trick, maybe this player played the 1. And so again, this would be a sum of 3, but this player over here doesn't even have any people in front of them. So this player would increase theirs by 1. This player up here would increase theirs by 2. This would attack the player, but they don't have anything. So it just kind of is an empty attack. Then they get the 2 here. And then resolving, they would lose 2. They would save that person. This person would lose 5. Save that person. And then up here, they would lose 3 and save this person. Let's jump ahead to the end of the game for scoring. And so how scoring works is all the survivors that are on top of your fence are just worth 0. They just get discarded. You didn't save them. They are not worth any points. And then all the survivors underneath that you did save are worth 1 point each. That's 2 points over here, 1 point, and 1 point. And then any survivors who got eaten, like in the example, they are actually worth -1 point. So this player up here got -1, +1 for 0. This player over here got 2 because they didn't get anyone eaten, but they didn't save any more. But the last thing to note is if you have your symbol up here on the A spot, you're actually going to get 3 bonus points, as you can see on the symbol here. So this bottom right player would get the 3 bonus points because they had their symbol on the 8 at the end, and also the 1 point for saving. So it was 4, 2, 0. They do say in the game you can't go negative. So even if this player up here, you know, -2 and 1, they would still be at 0. And that's how to play one round. In this game, you actually just keep playing rounds until somebody gets 10 points, and then that triggers the end game, and then whoever has the most points at the end of that is the winner. The leader of the next round is just the player with the fewest points, and if there's a tie, you just choose between them. And in that final round, if there is a tie for most points, like if someone hits 10 over the threshold and another person also got 10 and they're tied at 10, it's the player in the final round who has the most survivors on top. So if these players were tied at the end, it would be this player who won, and if that's a tie, like this, then it's shared victory. And that's how to play 10 Tricks Later. So that is 10 Tricks Later and Livemix. I think Yusuke is a fascinating designer to pay attention to. They're doing cool, new, fun things. I've even played their other games, like Corsair and stuff, outside of the trick-taking genre, and they do some great stuff over there as well. Let's first talk about 10 Tricks Later. So I think comparing the two, this is the much more interesting theme, and not because zombie themes are new or anything. In fact, like, this is definitely a more novel theme, which I love. Kudos for that. I love a good novel theme. But I think thematic integration into the gameplay, and also, like, there's such a tongue-in-cheekness to it all, which is great. The production is amazing. So the fact that 10 Tricks Later is, you know, playing off the idea of like 28 days later, 28 weeks later, that movie series. And then also, like, you always have 10 tricks, which is fun. The theme of, you know, saving survivors and then bringing them in is great. The fact that zombies are weird, they change gameplay, they also attack your survivors is awesome. I love that super small detail, or maybe it's not small because, you know, people usually talk about it, but it's such a cool twist in, I talk about that idea of card art, where I personally love if the suits change or if the numbers get bigger, the card changes. So like David and Goliath, or like I do it in Short Zoot Suit and Of What's Left, where and Of What's Left, as the cards get smaller in rank, the owls get sleepier, things like that. But what I love in this one is not only is it all unique art, but the suit, depending on what you have, will be kind of like a theme. So like the ones are maybe like kids or like school children. But what's interesting is in the zombie suit, it's a zombie version of that exact thing. So like in that case, it was those kids. In 6, I think it's like kind of like janitors, and then there's zombie janitors, or like office workers and then zombie office workers. It's so great. The art is so great. I even love the little beads because they're flat on one side, so they don't roll, and they also magnify what number you're on. There's just tons of charming, clever things about the production. So I love that. And I think it does come through in the gameplay. So you're trying to win survivors and then bring them in. The kind of core of the must follow is fun and unique. It's a little... It's like you must follow if you have 2 or more. You can't lead zombies. But then if you only have 1, you can play a zombie. So it gives more flexibility on zombie stuff. But it just makes it a little unpredictable. And in a game that's like a little bit exacting with the numbers, it's maybe a little at odds with itself. It is cool. It's a cool concept. I would definitely play this again. I think there's some fun moments to be had, and there's some cool like push and pull. But in addition to like, it's a little hard to plan some things. The scoring is super brutal. So it's cool that you can't get 0, but like you only get 1 positive points for saving survivors and negative points for not, and then that 3 if you get your thing all the way up, which is great. So like a good hand, or you know, a bad hand is still valued, and 3 points is a lot. I do think there's a little bit of like sometimes, like I've just had hands of this where like people don't do too well, and like the not that it's a wasted round by any means, but like the scoring wasn't very high, and it just felt like, okay, yeah, we just played a hand, and you know, it was like 2-1-0 or something. Like it's like, okay. So I think if you're prepared for that, you're okay with that, it's fine. It's just for some reason, maybe it's expectation things, it's like a zombie themed trick taking game, but it's like it's a very exact kind of brutal scoring. So maybe that is thematic. It's like harsh, desolate, scraping to get any points you can. So maybe that's thematic. But yeah, the game's interesting, but I don't know if it's like too amazing, just because there's some levels of like you'll be dying to get a trick and you just won't. And I get that that's like this. That helps. Or sometimes you'll finally get a trick and then you'll get zombied, which stinks. But overall, I think there's some cool ideas, and it's interesting to have, like, if you only have one in the must follow, you can play a zombie as well. There's some interesting things that it's doing with must not follow. Definitely a unique game, great theme. So overall, good points in my book. Definitely would play it again. Livemix. Theme itself, I do not relate to. Wanting to get idols, music idols, I think. Not quite sure. Definitely a cool concept. Production, again, itself, kind of like whatever, right? This is pretty standard, nothing too special. You're just holding up different sticks, nothing too wild. And also funny, just as, you know, I'm in the trick-taking space and I'm noticing more and more like quad indices and whether they're on cards or not. And they were for 10 Tricks Later, but not for Livemix. And it's just interesting because they just put them on the bottom as like little white numbers, reverse numbers. And they could have done that here, but they didn't. So it's kind of interesting. I always wonder, like, especially if it's the same people making the game, same publisher, same designer. I imagine it's like a, you know, a design circle. So it's probably the designer is maybe the publisher. That why they would change. Kind of interesting. Anyway, the one thing I do love about the production is this little star. What a cute little bit. The gameplay, though, it's super interesting. I think the general idea is if you stay until the end, you don't have any hand, which is good because hand's always bad. Is always a liability for you. But if you stay into the end, more players are dropping out, so you're actually getting less cards. So there's a really interesting push and pull where, like, yes, technically staying to the end is great, but often the score is the person who gets the most is probably the person who went out second or third, or even first if they got 3, and maybe made it so they mitigated their hand really well. There's some interesting choices. There's, like, for example, if you I say you because it's happened to me, but I'm trying to abstract it so I don't feel as bad. I had my eye on this card because I had like the 12 through 9 of the flower suit, and I was like, oh, this is great. I'll just lead flower tricks. But then I just like went out too early and I still had like the 9 and 10 in my hand. So even though I got some flower stuff, I actually got minus points. So like a really strong hand, or a hand that can like really run the table in a way, didn't quite help because, again, you only can win like 2 or 3 tricks. So there's a cool balancing act. I love that idea of like you're mitigating your hand, but also trying to capture things that are good. And there's a kind of a fun min-maxing that you can do if you get like a 5 flower and you have both, you know, the 5s and the flowers. And I think one of the most fun in the game is when you get multiple of these and they kind of match, right? Like I guess you can see here, like now 3s are worth 2, 4s are worth 2, and 5s are worth 2. So it's really good. And you see what people have in front of them. So there's like this, like you can kind of plan on maybe what to play if you're going to lose and not give them points. And also maybe push people into winning, you know, 2 Bs or 2 As, because you can see that kind of flow. I've had players complain about the 9s and how the 9s, when they're played, can kind of, you know, very tactically kind of take that ish, move the things, but you're kind of prepared for it. And like a 9 on suit is a pretty high card. So if you're playing an 8, you're like, I can win. And even if someone does play a 9, it moves. And then later on, you just have to be aware of like more people messing with you, especially with players who kind of want to play the 9s early before they get knocked out. So I didn't mind it too much. I can see why you might not like that, is because it's definitely a planning game, and then those 9s kind of are the antithesis of that. I think kind of keeps you on their toes. I like the 1 beats the 12, and even in 10 Tricks Later, like the 1 beats the 8. That's always fun, kind of like Voodoo Prince, or where the lowest beats the highest, kind of cyclical ranking, which is always nice. Yeah, so I think Livemix is really fun. There's that level of balancing your hand, balancing your tricks, and, you know, getting to the end and not taking anything could be good, maybe not good. You still have to kind of prepare, because even if you're going to take the leftover ones, they're the leftover ones, and so they do have to kind of work with whatever's in your hand, because you didn't really take any cards, you didn't capture any cards. So I've heard some people are like, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to try for that strategy, but definitely isn't the best. Like, it can be the best. I've seen hands where that player won that hand, but it's not the strongest. So yeah, definitely an interesting game. I could see why people don't like it, though, because there are moments where someone could just like be winning a bunch, and you wouldn't have too many options to cultivate your hand, or to win tricks and choose what your scoring things are. So sometimes you're a little bit at the will of other people, but at that point you're maybe trying to cultivate your hand and see what gets left over and have it score for you. So there's definitely still options. So it's cool, but overall it does some interesting things with like planning your hand, cultivating your hand if you're losing, which is fun. I do think sometimes you're a little like, okay, just waiting around, hanging around. There's also a little bit of wackiness in the moving star, but I think that adds some dynamic play to the game. So yeah, I think if I had to rank them, I like this one more than this, but also like this has a really fun theme if that's kind of what you're going for, and a little bit better production. So if only they had a mix, maybe the third game would be off the charts. Wonderful theme, wonderful production, and even better gameplay. So that is Livemix and 10 Tricks Later. Check them out. Again, if you're watching this channel and you're watching this right now, I think you'd be interested in what they do. They do unique stuff in the space. There's fun tricks to be had definitely throughout, and can't wait to see what this designer does more. Thanks so much for watching. Catch you later. Bye.